The problem is, it's not. I don't think it's Ross's missus that is the barrier to all this cheating. It's Ross.
He's a disgrace to science and human rights for how he promotes false models and cherry-picked data. I hope his time comes in a court of law where he pays for his crimes along with the others.
Whoop, whoop.
And then here's a classic comment. Buckle up for your booster every winter. Bitty wants his yearly dividend payments.
I enjoyed that one.
Like, he was dragging me through the weather.
I want to quit.
Yeah. Like, if I could have quit, I would have quit.
Just waiting for the nod. You're looking sideways, going, "Want to quit? Want to quit?" We can quit.
And you just get Miss Stone back. You just get Miss Stone back at you.
It's funny you say this because literally like 15-20 minutes before, always gets to bedtime, middle child, I don't want to go to bed. Why do I have to go to bed? You don't go to bed at this time. I'm like, I'd love to go to bed at this time, but I'm not. And it said, so when do I actually get to go to bed at whatever time that I want to? And it's like, right, well, when you live by yourself, it's like, well, okay, I'll go and live by myself. And so I was just like playing it out to see how he'd do. And he got his trainers on, he's outside, and I was just like, you don't even know how to cross the roads yet, mate. How are you going to get any toilet paper to wipe your bum? Because all the toilet paper's in here as well. So it's just like, I was just like, I think you better come in. No, I don't want to come in. It's like, no, I think you should. Maybe try again tomorrow. It's like, okay. So literally we had that. And it's like, I want to have to, when do I have to stop going to school? And it's like, well, legally you have to continue going to school until you're 18. And so, and then I said something which really made me think, I shouldn't have said that, which is, the more you go to school, probably get a better job, and the more that you'll get paid. Because and then you can afford to live by yourself and go to bed whenever you want to. But I was like, technically that's not true, because kids are opening presents these days without any GCSEs or degrees and getting paid more than I am and you and everybody else in the world. So maybe caveat that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, and I'd never advocate that you have to go to school anyway, personally. I'd say, provided you got something, like, if you figure out what you want to do, and if that's opening presents up on YouTube, and you get fulfillment out of it, and it's bringing an income, knock yourself out. Quit school at 9 if you want. Fair play. Like, find your own path. You can always go back and get a degree when you're 50 if you want, if you really want to go it. But come on. Let's not pretend that degrees and GCSEs mean anything now. They're by and large just, we do it because it's just the easiest way to get rid of our kids whilst we earn money at work. Let's be honest. It's a glorified babysitting service, isn't it?
Free babysitting, absolutely.
It's not free.
Well, if you don't use it, you have to figure out something else. Yeah, we do pay for it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's just...
It's going to say we pay for our taxes if you don't want to use it, and say either you could stay at home or we go to a private school, whatever, you've then paid double in a way. But I think you're right, but I think there's basic things which school are necessities, like English and maths for GCSE. That's literally the basics of getting any job. Like, I think you are completely hamstrung if you don't have that.
Yeah. But that's why that as a parent, though, if your kid does decide he wants to open presents on YouTube and is earning millions of pounds a year, you would still make sure you go, look, outside of this, you need to read a book, do basic maths. You have to. Then that would just be your duty as a parent. And you could either teach that. I'm pretty sure most parents could teach GCSE level English and maths. And even if you couldn't, take some of their money that they're earning and go, I'm going to buy you a tutor. And they'd pass it in a year anyway, just one-on-one.
Yeah, they don't need to know about 1066, and we don't need to know about Oxbow Lakes.
And if they do, like the fucking information's out there on the internet. Go if you want your geography GCSE, Google some geography shit, and you'll learn it yourself.
Have you been using Pythagoras' theorem today?
Exactly.
But you do go back to all the things which we've been through in terms of GCSEs, A levels, degrees, and think, where have you applied this?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think my main use case has been in pub quizzes.
So it is literally you being trained up like a monkey to perform for pub quizzes, and that's it. Like job wise, you know, I doubt that the very senior people in our business actually use any of their degrees either. I think you probably got certain ones like legal, accounts. You know, they have to use what they've been taught, but I think everyone else, I just don't think there's a single bit which they will have used.
No, definitely not.
Saying the vocational ones. If you want to be a vet, if you want to be a doctor, absolutely, they all make sense to get officially qualified. And you do want people to have a good stamp of approval. But if you're going into a business world, there is no stamp of approval in business. It's what's your reputation, what's your network. That's your credentials, and that's based on how smart you are and how nice a person you are to do business with. It's got nothing to do with what university course you completed. It's just it's nearly worthless.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's just easily accessible these days, you know. No need to go to a library to find that book that has the answer in it. When voice note it just to Google, immediately get the answer.
Yeah. Darnell, would you push your kids or persuade them not to go to university?
Yeah, before I was 50-50, now I'm probably like 70-30 against them going.
What's caused that?
I guess just seeing more and more the fact that you can be very successful in life without it and debt-free. But I made some really good relationships and friendships whilst at university as well. And I think I matured a lot more in those 3 to 4 years before hitting the world of work as well. Although equally, you could say that time could have been used as experience.
I was going to say, if you have that time, you're talking about maturity for university, which is what quite a lot of people say. Those 3 years, you've got to go out and work, get up, go into work for 8 o'clock every day. Surely that's going to drive you to be more mature.
Yeah.
I was still a child when I came out of university. If anything, it taught me a lot of bad habits because I thought it was just a piece of piss. Like if this is what the highest level of education is, I had like, I don't know, 12, 15 hours of work to do a week. And if I had a lecture that started at 9 a.m., that was nearly guaranteed to get missed. Like it's stupid to even start a lecture at 9 a.m. What are they doing? They know we don't get up till 9 and lectures should start between 10 and 11 and they shouldn't be more than 2 to 3 hours a day. Otherwise we're going to switch off and get bored. So when I came out and I starting work at 8 till about 5:30, doing that 5 days a week, gee, that hit me like a truck. I was exhausted.
I was.
But I actually look more of a routine at university. I think university was just, like you said, really bad habits. Whereas getting into work, I preferred it massively because it actually gave me some kind of structure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I used to come home, funny you say that, guys, and I literally used to have a nap like after work for the first 6 weeks because I was thinking, geez, I was shattered.
Yeah, that's a real wake up call. And I think if like, that's why I noticed it amongst some of my mates that went straight into like plumbing and more vocational type stuff. When I came out of uni at 21, 22, I was still a child, not really knowing what the working world was, and just had no respect for money really, because you just put piling on debt, and you're just trying to you're going out all the time, just wasting your money on drinking and just crap. Whereas they were so much more mature. They were like they'd moved out properly. They were saving. They were like working hard jobs, like physical jobs as well as not just being behind a computer in long hours. And they were so much more advanced than my little. And the thing is, I did a completely worthless degree as well. My computing degree was a complete load of garbage because every single guy on the course we already knew all the content. We were already computer guys. We were already into it. And the lecturers that were standing up in front of us were all in their 50s and 60s. The internet was a new thing to them, and like building a computer was like we all just did that anyway. So it was a hobby. We went in and had to sit in lectures that made what we knew as a hobby boring. We had to memorize various bits of garbage about computers that
and usability and programming and God knows what else, networks. Yeah, I remember all that, and it's just like, great, you made it boring, haven't you?
And didn't use any of it. We knew the internet was going to be the big thing, but they were still behind. They were doing a course from 15 years ago at Liverpool University, and I think they were almost proud of it. It's like, oh, we're going to teach you the history of computing. Like, I don't need to fucking know. I want to know about what it is today. What's what's the cutting edge? What am I going to be? What do I need? What skills do I need right now to be able to get a really good job in 5 years' time? They didn't have a clue.
Also, when most of the content is theory as well, I think it's massively flawed. I think you've got to teach a little bit of theory, but have a lot of hands-on. So I think nothing's going to stick. But then again, like we said, even if they had that, what would you actually got out of that? I think it would have been useless anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting to understand what they actually, and when I say this, I mean it in the truest sense, teach at Harvard, because these kids are super smart already to have got into Harvard. And then a lot of them actually come out and then they're the founders of the types of businesses and apps that we're using today. So what are and who are the people that are lecturing to them? Are they essentially lecturing to them how to run a Fortune 500 company, or
is this someone's surroundings? Like, if you put someone with a bunch of idiots, you're going to be an idiot. You put someone with a bunch of smart people, then you're going to start brainstorming. I read it today, and it was some PT on Twitter. He's like, join up with a meathead gym because you get stronger. And I was just like, fair play, good point. And I think you put the same thing about the smarts is you're surrounded by smart people, not just idiots. Half of who drop out, a third who probably develop a drug habit, or a drinking habit, and the rest probably just dossing like they're unemployed.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's smart and also rich and connected people like these. It's because one of the biggest things about getting a startup off the ground, it's not just the idea. It's about, you need to be smart as well. But ideally, it's funding. If you want to hire your first couple of developers or salespeople or whoever the first couple of hires are, that's hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of startup funds straight away. And if the three mates that you made at uni all have millionaire parents that are super smart in their own rights as well, and you've got a little idea and you put a little business plan together, you obviously use some of your Harvard education to make it all look super legit, and you send that to one of your parents and go, come on, well, what do you think? You're just going to get your $500,000 investment, boom, straight there. There's your VC funding. And you're already now, you've got some smart co-founders and you've got your first $500,000 funding. 99% of ideas and entrepreneurs never get past that step. They almost get it given to them like handed, that's just free. And now the next couple of steps, of course, most of them still fail, but because they have that start, you only need 10 every decade to get through, and they end up being the biggest companies in the world. And we're run by, and ironically, I don't think the lecturing's good because virtually every business that started in Harvard, they all dropped out. They don't even have their Harvard degrees. They get them honorary given to them later. They normally drop out in the second year.
So that was Zuckerberg, wasn't it? Because he was Harvard, and I think he dropped out. Gates, I thought he just lived in the garage, apparently, according to him.
No, he was in Harvard. That's the very first computer ever built was in Harvard. He got access to it, realized it needed a proper UX on it, and went, I can design DOS for this. And they just went, no, you can't. Computers aren't even a thing. And so he started it inside Harvard and quite quickly realized this is a business. I'm just leaving.
So he always romanticized that he made it in a garage, but his parents were massively rich and backed him, weren't they?
Yeah, well, that's exactly, yeah.
Well, when I say massively rich, they weren't Bill Gates rich, but they were rich.
Yeah. He definitely came from a privileged background. I think his mum was like in government as well. Like she was pushy, in terms of education.
Did she push soy?
It's interesting actually on the whole Bill and Melinda Gates. Apparently, he's been allowed to see his ex-girlfriend throughout the entire marriage as well. So it was like one of the prerequisites that he put in to get him married. He said, look, there's a friend of mine who I used to date and I want to continue seeing her. And so he has been allowed to see her every year, and they've done like weekend trips away and stuff like that.
Weekend trips. It was just as friends.
Just as friends. Hey, when you're the richest man in the world and you could not necessarily get any woman, but you've got a woman, they come with rules.
I was going to say, I don't think Bill Gates really could have got many women.
No, definitely not. But I think some people would have been, or some women would have been attracted by his mind because he's super smart.
By his mind. But is that code for money? Like, they've been attracted by the freaking billions and billions.
Yeah, I was going to say his wonderful personality.
Exactly.
I was going to say his mind. He's a renowned cunt. So
well, I think he went to Epstein's Island, saw him at least a dozen times, I think, even though he denies all of it. So
yeah, that's all gone really quiet.
That was apparently the straw that broke the camel's back with Melinda, wasn't it? When she with Belinda, yeah. Once it all came out that he was officially on the manifest, and when Epstein was, when he killed himself, and all the stuff came out. Yeah, Bill Gates was on it, and he was on it like a good dozen times, and they pretty much split up then. So this all came out like 3 or 4 years ago, and they've been living basically apparently separate lives since then, and they only finalized the divorce recently. But it was when Belinda found out he'd been on the island and pretty much knew what he'd been doing. So, because even if the girls are over age, let's just say they're all over 18, it's still a shagging island for billionaires. Nice and out of the way. There's
only rumours at the moment. There's only rumours at the moment, like there's, Prince Andrew, which is a renowned one. Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, they're all like rumoured, obviously. At the moment.
It's hilarious that I don't know how that's a rumour. Like, they're on the flight manifest. They fucking went. Like, it's not a rumour. Like, what happened on the island is a rumour. But the fact is, loads of underage young girls that essentially were from very underprivileged backgrounds. They were all poor, all came from like where they had broken families. They were very vulnerable kids, essentially. They'd been picked up and existed on this island and essentially were Epstein's slaves. That is all fact. Then we have a load of billionaire old guys visiting dozens of times over a decade. So
it's to talk about charity.
I know. Like, come on, like, it doesn't take a genius. Like, why would you go to an island where there's a load of
wasn't it affectionately known as Pedo Island?
Yeah, everyone joked about it, didn't they? It's another one of those jokes and like things that people used to, like, it was a conspiracy theory. Yet another one of those things, and then it turns out it wasn't a conspiracy theory. Yeah. It was all factual. It was all correct.
Yeah. It's like R. Kelly hiding in plain sight. You know, everybody knows about it, like the Epstein stuff and maybe also the Harvey Weinstein stuff and the Bill Cosby stuff that happened.
Bill Cosby, I saw something flash up saying that it'd been...
Yeah, he's been overturned.
Yeah.
He's getting out.
Why was it overturned? Was there something dodgy in it, or has he just bought his way out?
Well, I think he's bought his way out, but what I read, it was some kind of technicality. And weirdly though, it doesn't sound as bad, or isn't as bad as it sounds, because he got accused of sexual assault by over 60 women, but he was only prosecuted for one. The other 59 either didn't formally raise the charges, or was outside of the statute of limitations. It'd been too long. So he only got charged for one. So he's only ever going to be in prison for 3 to 10 years anyway. He's already served 2. And now they've just overturned the conviction completely. So he's actually walking out an innocent man. And if anything, he can probably sue the state for losing 2 years of his life. And so it isn't quite as bad, because he was probably going to get out in the next couple of years anyway. But yeah, it's been completely overturned. And
so it's always a bit.
He hasn't got many years left, but yeah.
it's always a bit of a weird one when someone famous gets accused of rape or sexual assault. Then it's known that people do jump on the bandwagon, especially in America, where they can sue and actually get money out of the situation. So it's always hard to understand when you say, oh yeah, 60 people, but are these 60 people just opportunists because they know they could get $1 million a pop? And I suppose people will say that it makes you quite untrusting, but it's the world, isn't it?
Yeah. What I find weird is, obviously, I don't know how true it is in other countries, but the statute of limitations, I don't think that should be there for violent crimes. Like for rapes and for murders, just because it happened 30 years ago, like if there's categoric evidence that you did that thing, you should be able to get convicted of that. Your defense shouldn't be, it was ages ago. That rape doesn't count. So yeah, it does. Like,
But
that
it's also,
absolutely does count. Like, that's ridiculous to say it doesn't count.
I think if there's forensic evidence, and yes, you're right, but I think quite a lot of these circumstances where we say it happened 20, 30 years ago, sex crimes, it's all circumstantial. Like, and oh yeah, because 30 people said, oh yeah, it's true. But like I said, there's opportunists, and there's a lot of people who want to be Insta famous, Facebook famous, want money. And I just don't trust a lot of people's motives.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree. It's just
there will be genuine people.
DNA evidence, though. Imagine there is. And
oh yeah,
and even
I
video.
think it's but I literally think it's you got friends.
Like 25 years ago, it doesn't matter.
But you got actual evidence, and you got circumstantial. I think circumstantial, that is where I'd say that it is. That's where limitations should be in place, because otherwise it can just be a smear campaign. I love how my cats just come along.
Yeah, I'm just reading about Bill. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it just looks like the only female, and due to the statute of limitations, and is walking free.
Yeah, it's weird. I still, like I said, I don't get it. The statute of limitations shouldn't exist.
Yeah, if there's videos, if there's actual evidence, then yeah, I definitely agree with you. It kind of moved. I don't know what we started talking about in terms of the points, but it's kind of led us on in a way to McAfee, hasn't it? Because we were talking about Epstein before, and it's probably a bit of a bridge in a way.
Yeah.
So, first question: do you think he was Epsteined?
I do.
100%.
Yeah, he even said it. He even tweeted when he got first. Actually, when he was on the run, he said, "If I do die in prison, just know that I didn't kill myself. That will be a setup."
But here's my point. I think there's a point that he was nuts. Everyone knew that he was nuts. What did he say? That if Bitcoin didn't hit 100 grand in the last year, he would eat his dick on live TV. You know, he's a bit mad, and he's been openly bragging about not paying taxes for I don't know how many years. So you go.
It was 8 years.
So for 8 years, we know he hasn't paid tax. And what was it? Wesley Snipes was sent down for a few years for I think about 5 years for not paying a year or two of tax. So the guy's 76. He's going to get 10 years in prison for that, because the Americans love punishing people for not paying taxes. So he's going to be 86. And I kind of went, has he just killed himself? Because he's just like, you know what? I'm going to die in prison. 10 rotten years in prison where people are just going to go for him because he's famous.
Yeah. I've seen that being written, but I just don't know. He's such a fighter. I just don't think he'd have taken that exit. But yeah, it could have been. It just looks too convenient. Like it's on the day. They even said it would be the perfect day to suicide him off, because it was the day that he was in Spain, and the formal hearing had been passed where he lost his opposition or his appeal against being extradited to the US. And he knew the second he landed on US soil, he was not going to get a fair hearing. It was going to be, because it's their tax money. And tax evasion is the number one crime you can ever commit in any country, above anything else, is not paying the government your taxes. So the fact that he hadn't paid them and had been public about it, and probably had encouraged lots of other people to do the same,
they want him at them.
But he hasn't lived in America for many years, has he? So he's been living in Central America, but I'm guessing that you have to go through. You have to give up your citizenship, don't you? Otherwise, America can still tax you no matter what.
Well, yeah.
It's under regulation, isn't it? But
you can never get rid of your tax implications to America. That's one of the prices for ever having citizenship.
That was Bill Clinton who brought that in.
Yeah. So if you're an American, even if you move to a tax haven somewhere else, like your tax implications still apply back in America in some shape or form.
I think he stopped paying when he started to go on the run, but
yeah,
after the neighbor incident and the dog incident.
What was the dog incident? His neighbor died quite weirdly.
He didn't. No, he didn't die weirdly. What was it? You know it down now, don't you? You watched the documentary.
Yeah. So essentially, the neighbor told him to tell your dog to be quiet, and he was just like, "Well, I'm not going to tell my dog to be quiet on my own land, so do one." Anyway, the neighbor then threw a piece of beef over the fence that was poisoned and therefore killed the dog. He knew this, and then John McAfee hired somebody to kill the neighbor not long afterwards. So we know, or we believe strongly, that it wasn't him that killed the neighbor directly, but he had involvement. So they weren't after him for the killing of the neighbor, but correct me if I'm wrong, the neighbor was like face down in the pool of blood in the pool.
Yeah, well, I think he was just sat on his lounge on a sofa, and he'd been shot in the back of the head. Someone just come in. He hadn't even know it was coming. Just executed him essentially, and it wasn't a robbery. They just banged him and went straight out again. It was very obviously a hit.
In McAfee's defense, someone who is willing to kill a neighbor's dog, literally their next door neighbor, so obviously he's going to piss off a lot of people. It isn't just going to be McAfee.
The problem is, I think the problem is, I think everyone around McAfee and everyone he kind of had conflicts with. I think sometimes, when like everyone seems to be an arsehole when they're around you, it's probably you're the arsehole. So I'm pretty sure out of the bad neighbors here, I'm pretty sure it's McAfee. And his dogs weren't just barking; they were like aggressive guard dog things that would go for anyone that went anywhere near the property. So I think he was just like, these dogs are dangerous. Like, you need to sort them out. Like, put them on a lead or something. Like, they're gonna get me or my kids, like, or visitors. Like, this is dangerous. And he just told them to fuck off. So after months of this, I think eventually he takes it into his own hands and goes, fuck it, I'm going to kill one. And he didn't realize, like, look, if someone's crazy enough to have guard dogs and be that mad, your best bet is probably just to move. If you take it, if you escalate it to that level where it's just gone from arguments to now I've killed one of your dogs, where does John McAfee take it? Yeah, he takes it to full on murder. And he flees the country, doesn't he? He flees and he's permanently on the run then. And just at that time when he gets into crypto, starts advocating that this is the new life, no one should pay taxes. I
thought, obviously, where was it? Which country was that in which it happens?
It's like the Dominican or something. I don't know.
It's Belize, but there'll be countries which don't have extradition treaties to America or Belize, because obviously no one's going to have one for Belize anyway. But obviously, you find one about American. But to end up in Spain, I was just like, how stupid are you?
Yeah, I know.
The problem was the FBI and the CIA were after him on boats. So they were trying to get him arrested, and then they're just going to shove him on a boat and take him back. So you don't need to be like officially extradited. They make sure that the local police don't charge you with anything, just hold you, and then they just grab you and take you back. There's lots of underhand ways that even when you think you're outside of extradition, if they can physically get hands on you, then you're done. And the local governments, especially in these little places like Belize, are very easy to bribe. So the US government just throws them a bit of cash, and they just release whoever they have. If you go to Russia or China, now you're safe. Those governments can't be bribed by the US, and they won't let the FBI and the CIA in.
But he would have to pay his taxes.
If anything, they think you're. It's they will shield you, because it's like, the money that you're meant to be paying is going to fund our enemy. So welcome, come in.
What's it called? The Patriot Act, where you have to pay the taxes abroad. I think it's something along those lines. Do we know what percentage it is? Because I think it's when you're above a certain threshold. Because I spoke to someone who was living in the UK, obviously American citizen, and they said that they didn't have to worry about that, but they did have to declare how much they earned every year. So the government was aware of whether they had to pay that tax.
I'm not too sure personally,
but it is quite scummy, isn't it?
I'd be interested to understand what he was due to pay, given the fact that he was destitute. He sold
I don't think
business.
He was. I think he still had millions floating around, no matter what he probably claimed.
Yeah, he had a lot of Bitcoin and a lot of shit coins. And admittedly, a lot of them dumped. Because he was riding that 2017 wave. He was the Elon Musk of that wave, but he was just full out scammer. He wasn't just pumping one coin. He had coin of the day, coin of the week, and like literally people were queuing up to pay him millions to tweet their coin next, and he was doing it every fucking day. Like he was leading so many noobs to slaughter, and you could see people were tracking his wallets, and he would get paid millions in the coin. He would then tweet about it. The price would go flying up. He would then dump, and then the price would come back down. And you would see it time and time again. It's like, are people going to learn that like even John doesn't believe in these projects? He just gets paid millions and dump on your heads once you start buying. But they just didn't. It just carried on going until eventually the bull market was over and reality kind of set in. But he made millions and millions and millions during all that. So admittedly, I don't think he was particularly sensible with his money, but because he's gone bankrupt numerous times in his life with various kind of business ventures that seem completely crazy. So he might not have had loads.
Can't you? It's like, that's what they say, don't you? Once you've made it once, the steps to make it again. So I don't really think he cares too much, does he? Or did?
No, but yeah, he's gone. So and he did talk a lot of sense. Like he was completely crazy. He loved being drunk and he loved taking every illegal substance under the sun. And then he used to just tweet about it. And some of his tweets are completely crazy. But they were entertainment. Like, as much as he was just shitting shit coins, like if you're sensible, you know what he's doing. So I followed him for entertainment. It was just pure entertainment and just pure like a walking car crash he was. But in between all that, he went to a lot of the Bitcoin events and spoke a lot of sense about being self-sovereign, about government corruption, about just looking after yourself and looking after your sound money. He did get it.
Basically, he wanted the easy money from the plebs, the proper plebs. I can't blame him for that. If he's got the beliefs around what Bitcoin actually gives, but goes, you know what, if you're going to pay me $1 million, I'll talk about XRP or Polkadot or what the hell it was.
Have you ever watched, or if you watched back some of the videos of him, like in the last couple of years? He's just crazy. As you know, I'm a big fan of Patrick Bet-David, and he interviewed him in 2018, and he talks about the interview. They get there, they get his address, and it says, right, you've got 2 hours within order to get there. So, and it's 125 miles away. They finally get there, knock on the door. There's a secure army, pretty much like mini army with AK-47, semi-automatics, knocking on the door saying, right, who are you? Why are you here? Even though we'd actually interviewed him previously before. And anyway, he gets let in. They're midway through the interview and somebody knocks the door that's not part of their team. And you actually see one of the security guards in the interview open the door with his gun, like just ready to pop whoever it may be. He was that paranoid. It's crazy.
Yeah, he was crazy. He ran for president in 2020, and his video he put it on YouTube, and it was all just mocked up. But he was there with his top off, with a gun around his chest. There was piles of what was supposed to be cocaine all around him, and then he just had like scantily clad girls who was just openly saying were prostitutes. as he's just trying to be sensible, talking to camera about why he wants to be president of the United States. You're like, this guy just genuinely does not give a fuck. He's just doing it for entertainment. He thinks this is funny. And, and I just say, what, hats off. He's the ultimate troll. and he doesn't care. Like, he just literally doesn't care. And it's like, if I shill something and you're stupid enough to buy it, then that's on you. I'm just going to do me. And I'm going to spend all that money on shit tons of drugs and prostitutes. And I'm going to even tell you, I'm going to post all about it on Twitter, telling you that's what I'm doing as well. I'm like, you know what? At least he's fucking honest. Like, he was an honest scammer. Like, everyone knew he was a scammer. He pretty much admitted it. But he also understood the fundamentals of freedom and self-sovereignty. And that's what he practiced what he preached, and he did it. And so
it's funny you say that. Actually, after the grilling, and they said, yeah, come on in. He said, right, we've got 5 prostitutes upstairs. Do you want to go up? And he says, no, thanks for your hospitality. I'll just stay down here. But the other guys might want to. And I think they declined. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He was just full of it.
That's what I loved. He obviously lost that bet. Price of Bitcoin had to go to $1 million a coin by 2020. Yeah. And he'd obviously had some time to think about this. And he'd revised the eating of his own dick. He says he's going to outsource the eating of his dick to a load of Thai prostitutes. And they're going to eat it over the course of the next 20 years by slowly licking it. So it's like, I'm just like, John, you're an absolute fucking legend. Like, so RIP John McAfee, because even when he makes silly bets, he finds a way out. Like, don't do business with people like this, because he will fuck you. Even when he loses, he will fuck you anyway.
What I didn't get, though, he was married.
Yeah.
So he was married.
To a prostitute.
To a prostitute. But pretty much seemed like they were, a legit couple.
Oh, yeah, they were properly in love. Like, she loved him and he loved her. But I think she just, obviously, if you're going to love John McAfee, you have to know he's going to shag about. But like, he literally said, like sex is one thing and then love is another. And I love this woman. And he was proper devoted to her. But he's like, but I'm going to shag about. And it's just, but I'll tell you that I'm doing it. And she was just like, okay.
Try running that setup past your Mrs. Ross. See how you get on.
This is all about setting up the stall early. Before they carry them, you have to tell them these are the rules.
Maybe you should, so use Bill Gates and a special friend. John McAfee and I
think our response would be, you're not a billionaire and you're not even a millionaire.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, good try.
Yeah, because the problem is, I don't think it's Ross's missus that is the barrier to all this cheating. It's Ross.
Oh, fucking hell.
So I came across, Stephen Bartlett, who I've been watching for a while, and his podcast, The Diary of a CEO. And this week he had on the Monzo boss, ex-boss now, and ex-co-founder, Tom Blomfield. And really interesting. I don't know if you guys managed to watch it, but he opened up about, I guess, some of the things that we've started talking about at the top of the podcast. He came from a very privileged background. He went to Oxford University. And he actually stated that people from privileged backgrounds should try to take their brains and their money and give more or take more risks, basically, and try to help others. But it was quite interesting and quite telling, because I think The Diary of a CEO, it was perfect for him. Because he's like gone from, I say nothing, built from nothing. Then he built Go Cardless, which was a success and it is still a success. Monzo is a success still. And then decided, I don't want any of this. I'm much happier just living my life. So it was quite interesting.
Didn't he decide just to bring his kids up and his wife would work?
I don't think he's married. He's 35. No. Yeah, he's not married. I don't
think the CEO who's done that in the last year. I can't remember who that was. I thought it was him. but I haven't got around to watching it.
Yeah, no, he's just 35-year-old just living the life with singledom and dating.
Yeah, it almost seems like he's gone full circle there, because if you grew up in a wealthy family, he probably didn't have to do anything. He could have just by piggybacked on daddy's business or taken some money and just invested it and then just ridden the wave and just, because that's like the hardest thing with making money is to start like getting your first million. Once you get your first million, I think it's a piece of piss from there, because all you got to do is invest it. Just don't be a dumbass and spend it on fast cars. Just invest it in the market, and that million will become 10 with inflation.
But it's also the contacts who will gain. So being a CEO of Monzo, it's also like everyone wants to be his friend. Everyone would link him into these opportunities. Like these are opportunities which plebs like us don't get. It could be sitting on the board of a company, being offered early shares into these kind of like groundbreaking companies. You look at the former, say, CEO of a business who he worked for, and he was on the board for various. He was chairman of like some cool companies, and basically he was getting invited into these kind of like arenas, which we don't get to see. And it is like once you've got that kind of like wealth and establishment, people want to bring you in because they see you being a success and think he can actually help this get to the next level as well. So like he will have mountains of money, I reckon, already, especially with Monzo, so public.
Well, I don't know what the last surrounding. I don't think they. Well, I think they were, or they got to be profitable. But he actually said in the podcast that he wished he'd have been a bit more cutthroat and started to not give the things away for free that they were giving away for free, like the cards and people losing their cards every weekend back in the days of when you could go out every weekend. And it's like, yeah, there you go. And then instead of charging them.
Yeah.
And ATM withdrawals and stuff.
Yeah. But I think his journey, like obviously like what I did is nowhere near comparable to him, but it's like we seem to have gone through a similar thing where you've gone out into the world, like you're young, you want to prove yourself. You've had a relatively good start. I think you got a much better start than I did, but then you go out and you, through your 20s, I mean, you just desperately want to prove to the world that you can do something and that you are, and you need to find what you're good at. But then you find it, and then you get into your 30s and you just realize you're not proving anything to anyone really that means anything. It's just it's just ego that's really driving you, and then greed to a certain extent. And once you have, like I said, once you've probably made your first million or so, which if he didn't have it before, he definitely earned it probably as being CEO of Monzo, just in wages, even if the company wasn't profitable. So now you're just going, right, I'm purely just doing this out of passion. And I think sometimes you just lose it. You go, what is the point? Especially with the way, like because that's why like I had the opportunity to be CEO in the company that we used to work for. And I didn't want it in the end. I thought I did. When I was 21, I joined the company saying I want to be CEO. And then by the time I got to 35, I actively did not want that job, because it's just being like the face of the company internally and externally is such a burden. It's a 24-hour job. You can never slip up. With employees getting more and more sensitive, it's increasingly likely you're going to offend someone who's then suddenly going to be calling for your head. Externally, you've just got to pander to rich billionaires to try and get funding and make sure they hold their shares in your business. And it's just all about smoozing. And you just go, you know what? I'm done. I'm 35. I'm one bad doctor's appointment away from a death sentence. You just never know when that thing's going to happen. You're like, I just want to go enjoy my life. I don't want to spend it babysitting a load of freaking millennials that all think they freaking should be CEO and be doing my job. I'm like, you know what? Fuck them. Why am I dedicating my life to helping them? I'm gonna quit and go enjoy myself. I can probably make more money investing independently with some of the contacts that I've made than I can ever do being CEO of the company. Yeah, I have my entire day free, so I'm just going to go and party on the jet ski and go surfing. Why not?
Yeah, massively. Sometimes wonder as well, like how do people do it? Because you hit the nail on the head there, like pandering to those and making sure that you say the right thing and definitely don't say the wrong things when it's just normal human behavior. Like, I find it, I don't know if I've got like verbal diarrhea, but I'd just call somebody out. Or I'd be like, why have you said that? Or why have you done that? And you do it like this? Like, you can maybe do it in your closed knit circle and behind closed doors with certain employees, but the other 1,000 that you employ, like, how do you hold that back?
We look at the catch-ups which our CEO does, and he gets at some ridiculous questions.
Yeah.
But he is so switched on. He knows how to answer it, and you've got to admire him for how good he is.
Oh, massively.
He is.
That's what I mean. I don't know how I'd do it.
Yeah, he is actually brilliant.
But the thing is, though, like it's a learned thing, and you have to basically leave your personality at the door. You have to stop being authentic. When you get asked a stupid question, like the way he would have got to that position of being CEO of a big company is calling people on their bullshit, being strong and being a leader. Then eventually you get there, you get asked fucking dumb questions that normally, if that was anyone that is even close to your level, you would call them a prick and they'd run off and be like, sorry, sir, I'll make sure I do better next time. You know, they'd actually have that type of relationship. When you're CEO, you're so high up in the rarefied atmosphere, you have to be nice to everyone. And it's so exhausting. And it's just the worst job in the world. Genuinely the worst job. You have to be a babysitter. You can never speak your mind. You have to do the company corporate line. You're a robot. And when I saw that was the bulk of the responsibility of being fake, I'm leaving. If I do that for long, like I'm not going to be me anymore. I'm going to forget who I am, because when someone says something like that, I'm just going to have the CEO response. I'm going to become that because that's what I am for 10 hours a day. So it's just like, nah, it's not for me. I want to be able to speak my mind.
Yeah. And he mentioned all of that as well. Like when the company was 100 people, it was fine, you know, remembering their names because you genuinely know who they are and you'll remember birthdays and stuff like that. But when it got to 2000 and then you're having HR issues presented at his door and he's thinking like, I've got a chief people officer for that. Like, you handle that. Absolutely. Like, pass that off. I don't want to be listening to any of that. And in a way, you know, I've managed teams and I think, geez, you guys need to think for yourself. And it's only on a much smaller scale and think, I'm not that type of employee to my line manager. So I just get on with myself. Like, you shouldn't even actually have to worry about me. Are the numbers correct? Yeah, they're correct. I'll see you next week then.
I don't know if you saw one of my posts on LinkedIn over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I did. I laughed. I was like, I'm not liking that though.
Oh my God.
What did he say?
There's some kind of article, I don't know if you saw it, where that Whitty guy or Chris Whitty got two drunk guys grabbed him in a park and tried to get selfies with him. They're like, "Hey, Chris." But like the way that got pitched was that he got attacked. And apparently they tried to put all these.
I like to point out they were fans. There was no kind of like grabbing, you know, as in grabbing or malicious. It's like, he's a national hero, because you could see it in how they're holding him.
Yeah.
And then everyone's saying, it's assault. It's like, these aren't anti-lockdowns. These are pro-lockdown.
And it just triggered me, the fact that the article that was linked on LinkedIn didn't have the video. It just had some stills. So in the stills, it looks like maybe he's being punched or attacked. But when you actually just Google it on Twitter, they're just pissed lads. They're probably actually high on something other than alcohol from the way they're acting. But they're just like, literally, all they say is, "Way," and they're trying to get a selfie with him. And he's obviously uncomfortable. So undoubtedly it was rude, but it was nothing more than rude. It was just, you know, I've seen footballers and people from Love Island get abused way worse than that by fans, you know, just people jumping on him. So someone put on LinkedIn this massive post about that and saying how he is a national hero and all that. So I just like comment on it going, he's the opposite. He should be put in prison for like his part in selling the lies of lockdown and vaccines and all that. I just go in.
Here we go. Here is the quote. He lied and stood by the locking up of the UK and helped himself flatten the curve and zero COVID narrative. He's a disgrace to science and human rights for how he promoted false models and cherry-picked data. I hope his time comes in a court of law where he pays for his crimes along with the others.
Whoop, whoop.
And then 57 replies. I'm not going to go through those because I haven't seen those. I just saw your post.
How many likes does it have, though? How many likes now?
There's 90 reactions. So it's 84 likes, 3 curious, is that? And then 2 celebrations and 1 love.
So there's like 90 positive, but if you look at the comments, there's like 50 odd comments, and I would say 45 of them are insulting me or calling me some type of name. 5 of them are then supporting me. I get called a twat, like all kinds of things.
Oh, we got someone who we work with.
This is on LinkedIn. This isn't even Twitter.
I was just going to say, yeah.
It says not cool, Gareth, someone who we work with. Yeah, I just think like it's been spun a narrative to show that these are what anti-lockdown protesters do, whereas they're not. They're actually pro. You know, they are pro. They think that Chris Whitty is a dog's bollocks, and that's what people have misinterpreted.
But look, what the reason I mentioned it is purely that I'm just speaking my mind there. That's just an opinion. It's like someone saying he's a hero. I'm going, no, I disagree. I think he's a villain. And then straight away, there's a load of people that are coming for me. There's people that I haven't spoken to for years.
But these are people who you're linked into.
Yeah, well, yes.
There's people who are just going, Gareth.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few texts of like screenshotting that, and they're like, "You're starting chaos on LinkedIn again." Like everyone's talking about it in the office or something. I'm like, it's just a comment. Like, why is it so controversial to literally just speak my mind about this thing? And obviously, like, if I'd have done that while still employed, I can almost guarantee I'm getting hauled in because I've had text messages from people going, "It's being spoken about." Like
I didn't actually know. Like literally, I saw the first one and thought it was funny. I didn't realize you'd cause such mayhem. You got COVID Karen saltiness levels still at all-time highs. I see. Just to stare.
Yeah, because it's and the thing is like what I also take from this. It's always very common on these types of takes that I have is that I'm saying something's controversial there. I always get more likes than comments. But the comments are 90% negative, and the likes are all from people. And like the people that text me, like none of them have liked it. None of them, because they're scared, because they're still employed. Even though they do support me, they are terrified to even press the like button on my comment. They just need to stay out of it.
This is, it's not Twitter. Like, so these are the kind of things which I stay away from. I think people are getting a bit sentimental, but you go back to basic facts. The modelling, which put us into a winter lockdown, was it based upon lies and deceit? Yes. So it wasn't based on science. It's based upon taking a worst case model and justifying something which it was never going to hit.
I know, yeah. But it's just about speaking your mind. Though. It shouldn't matter what the subject is. You should be able to be on any side of a topic, and you shouldn't be at risk of losing your job. Provided you're not. If I just wrote a massive blog piece about you, Ross, or something, just destroying you, that's directed, targeted abuse, and that should rightly be called up. That's just mean. But I'm attacking a public figure here or a political stance. I should be able to have opinions on that, and it shouldn't affect like my ability to do my job. Whereas if I had been employed and had made that comment, I can almost guarantee it would have affected my job.
Yeah. So, people have taken it as violence. I'm just scanning through. Someone's called you a complete fuckwit.
The thing is, there's no other context to that, is it? They just go, "You're a complete fuckwit," and then leave it. Like, it's just
shite response.
Do you know why though, isn't it? It's because they're not happy with their own lives, and the fact that they see you probably messaging that out there and thinking, "Oh, it's got nothing better to do with his time." Not that, it's just your opinion. It's like, "Oh, well, I'm not happy with my life and he seems to be happy with his and he's gone and said something that I disagree with. I'm going to call him a fuckwit."
There's a lot of anger out there at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah,
I think we discussed this before. I think people don't really know where it's come from and don't know how to focus it as well. I think we kind of touched upon it when Darnell and I were doing a bike ride that, you know, people just haven't got their focus. I think a lot, it's destroyed people's mind the last year.
Yeah.
I just don't think people actually realise they've picked up really bad habits, you know, whereas it's given a lot of people time, and people have picked up Netflix instead and takeaways instead of learning how to cook and, you know, doing exercise and things like that, or even reading books.
Yeah. I think it's like with anything of this, once you have a couple of public arguments with people as well on one side or the other, whichever side you argue with, you never come back from that place now. So if you've been supporting the lockdown and you're pro the vaccine stuff, you're never going to be anti it, no matter how much new evidence comes your way, because it's just so embarrassing that's going to be your position.
Here's a classic comment. Buckle up for your booster every winter. Bitty wants his yearly dividend payments.
I enjoyed that one.
That's classic. You know, I saw another comment which you put onto LinkedIn, but basically you are turning to John McAfee of our company now, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's literally where you are.
Hey, I'm at heart, I am a troll, so I can never get rid of that. But I love winding people up. But then on issues that matter, I am informed, and that's why I'm very good at trolling in this topic, because I do think I'm on the right side of the history here. I've researched it a lot, so when people come at me with stuff, I can respond very intelligently. But then I always just throw in like troll comments like that, and so you can't win. Like if I'm fighting, I've got too many weapons.
I think in 10 years' time, in my head, I just don't think they'll be able to cover this up. I think there's been too many problems with the whole situation. I think, yeah, I don't want to get into it because I've put us on a completely wrong topic, but then I saw a follow-up post. Most people are too scared to speak in case they get cancelled or judged, especially here on LinkedIn. That leaves the only comms being from people selling stuff, narcissists and virtue signalers. Oh, and the occasional post from people who just don't give a fuck.
I deleted that. How have you still got it?
I screenshot it and sent to Steph, and look what Gaz is up to today.
Oh my God. I wrote that, and then I started getting angry comments on it, and I just went, you know what, fuck it, I'm deleting it.
What, from the people who you're linked in with?
No, weirdly, they were randoms. So I was just like, oh, fuck off.
Oh, so they're checking you out from a thread.
Yeah, you probably get a strike from LinkedIn anyway.
I've always weirdly the only thing that they got me for, I had my profile picture flagged. I think because I'm smoking in it or something, because I got a cigar. So I got that flagged. So and all these trolls in those comments reported my profile picture, and it got taken down.
Oh right.
So I put a new one up, like whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's the only way they can attack you. They can't really get your account cancelled on LinkedIn, because I hadn't done anything. So what they do is they report your profile picture and get that taken down. So I'm like, all right, fine. It's a minor inconvenience.
You got me.
See, but if you look on LinkedIn, there's the 5 articles in the top right. And so when I'm having a cup of tea and want a 5-minute break, I'll have a read of those and the comments. It's quite addictive. But you do end up people like there was quite a fine line before the last year and a half between work and social. So you got Facebook to put whatever you want on that, then you got LinkedIn for your work. And there has been a blurring of that line. Like you've ended up with some really idiotic conversations and arguments on LinkedIn. You're like, really? Should you be doing this? Whereas I know you don't care because you don't have a job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like I'll try and read the Bitcoin ones when they appear, because there have been quite a lot over the last 6 months. Quite entertaining.
Yeah, the funniest comment really that I got was someone had gone in my profile, realized that I started up a bank in Puerto Rico, and they were lecturing me, telling me to go and have a look at what happened in 2008 in the financial crisis. And I personally, and my industry is responsible for way more deaths than what has happened in the pandemic. And I was like, the irony of someone telling me to go research 2008 financial crisis is just crazy. My number one thing is, yes, I did start up a bank. That was a tax haven bank, by the way, not a normal one. and now I'm a Bitcoiner. So anyone that is anti-financial system, fucking hell, you're preaching to the fucking wrong guy here. Like literally have all the things to come at me for, like trying to say that I'm from the finance sector and that's done no more damage than the pandemic has. I'm like, well, yeah, I fucking agree. Like, that's why I'm a Bitcoiner, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, people just don't have a clue, do they?
No.
Right. Do we want to move on? Because we've kind of gone on a tangent from, was it John McAfee? No, actually, we were talking about Tom Blomfield, weren't we?
Yeah.
So we don't do it. Sorry,
go for it. Go for it.
I was going to say, do we want to talk about everyone's favorite subject, El Salvador?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so massive announcements this week. I think it's the first time the president has really spoken formally as a proper, and then actually putting some substance behind, like, okay, fine, it's legal tender, but now what? And he's announced that, yeah, he's number one. They've built an app that works. It isn't a self-sovereign app, so I don't think you can have your keys with it. But what they're doing is they're just getting people off zero. So they're giving this app out for free. They're putting $30 worth of Bitcoin on the app. The app also has a special agreement with the cell phone companies that this app will just work whether there's a contract on the device or not. So it's almost like an emergency service type app. Like if you call like 999 in the UK, it always goes through. So they're basically going, look, money should be free. So we don't want our citizens paying. And he's announced it. They haven't paid everyone yet. I don't think they pay them until, I think it was either July or September. So he's just announced it at this point.
So they're helicopter money via the phone in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and so that's so people are doing the maths on it. There's like it's $180 million worth of Bitcoin that El Salvador have to buy. And the great thing is, once they've bought it, they have to give it out. And then our Bitcoin's now out in the system. They can't just get more Bitcoin. They can keep printing dollars, but then the more they print,
it'll literally cycle round and round when the system. So obviously Bitcoin has become a lot more transactional there, and it just end up floating between business, B2C, C2B, and all sorts. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. The app worries me. But like you said, I think you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to, I suppose, with what he's done, you've got to have a little bit of confidence in his intentions. But as a Bitcoiner, you kind of do think, oh God, an app, a government app, to store my Bitcoin. I don't want to touch that. But
if they're going to put free money in it, I'd be fine with it.
Exactly. I was going to say exactly the same. It's just like Coinbase and the lessons.
And when it's your transactional money as well. Because this isn't going to be your store. Because I think anyone who can create a couple $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, they'll be able to afford something to put it on. So this will just be there. Take this with me, pay in my shop or whatever. But yeah, pretty cool development. Yeah. So
and already like Bitcoin's changing lives over there. I saw a short interview with El Salvadoran from someone that's gone over there. And they were just looking at him with his utilities bill. So he gets his electric bill in the post every quarter, just as we all do. And usually what he would have to do, he doesn't have a bank account, because 70% of El Salvadorans don't have bank accounts. So he would have to take that bill. He'd have to get a bus into town with his cash. He'd have to then go to the electric company, pay over the counter, and then get the bus back. It would take him 3 hours. It's half a day. Every couple of months.
Is this because they aren't profitable enough to have a bank account?
They don't have it's just the banking system's just not there. Yeah, they're not profitable. Yeah, they don't earn enough money. They just don't have it.
They don't put a thing on buy now pay later for some kind of shiny I don't know what Beats headphones.
No, because it's just too easy to disappear, and yeah, it's just the risk levels are too high. It's always a business decision, isn't it? And yeah, so if customers aren't profitable, you don't roll out the service. So they're not profitable there, so they don't roll out the service. So that's why there's billions of people still unbanked. It's not because the banks can't get to them. It's that they're not profitable. They don't want them as customers. That's the reality. That's the real reason. And so this same guy, he said it takes 3 hours to pay each bill. I have to figure out how to get the money to them, save it, and then take it to them. He paid his bill in Bitcoin instead. And what he did, he just took a photo of the bill. He then sent that as proof to the guy that he would usually go to pay. He knows his name within the app. He searches his name, sends that amount of money in Bitcoin directly to him. Done. It took him 3 minutes to pay his electricity bill instead of 3 hours.
Wow.
And he doesn't, and there's no risk. There's no like company having to pay, hundreds of pounds a year to maintain his bank account for him and manage loads of risk. It's just a crappy little Bitcoin wallet with some Bitcoin in it. And he's not using the government wallet, by the way. He's using his own version. He's just downloaded one, grabs it, done it. Self-sovereign.
Nice.
It's it's amazing. It's literally changing lives.
I love that.
And we've kind of got, what is it? I think I read a rumor somewhere about the obviously with China banning mining and Bitcoin activity, there's rumors that people are going to move over to El Salvador because they're encouraging that kind of work and business. So they're saying that potentially you're going to end up with quite a lot of miners from China moving over to El Salvador. I think that kind of blends into something which you'd raised as another topic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the hash rate dropped by a huge amount over the last couple of weeks. Well, because China, they outright banned it and made it illegal. So, yeah, the hash rate dropped by about 30-40%, which was China's contribution. So, hence the difficulty adjustment that we have talked about on the last couple of pods. That is way too high at the moment. When 40% of the hash rate disappears, the difficulty now is way too high, and it's taking longer to do the blocks. And it's just taking longer and more energy to mine the blocks than it should be. So we're going to have the largest difficulty adjustment we've ever had in Bitcoin.
To make it easier.
To make it easier, downwards, yeah.
Yeah.
So suddenly it's going to be
will this be to catch up, and then will they then readjust it to make sure it's stable?
Yeah. So as we've said, every 2 weeks it adjusts. But we're just as all that hash rate came off, we'd just done an adjustment. So now we've pretty much been 2 weeks at the wrong level while we haven't been able to adjust. So it's this brings it back in line with the hash power. But yeah, all those hundreds of thousands of miners, there's crazy pictures of them all being boxed up and shipped to various countries all around the world to be replugged on. So all that hash power is coming back, because that is literally billions of dollars worth of equipment. Like that equipment is not just going to get thrown away.
Yeah.
Each miner costs between $2,000 and $5,000, and there's hundreds of thousands of them. That is an insane amount of money. And obviously they're super profitable. They're literally golden gooses. Like if you get those things plugged back in, they start mining Bitcoin like through them every 10 minutes. So you want to get those things plugged back in. So yes, that hash power will come back. And if anything, all it's really helped us do is decentralize China, the whole centralization in China thing, because they just were in the perfect place at the right time with technical know-how and cheap energy. China have shot themselves in the foot here, and they've decentralized Bitcoin even further by banning it. Now all those miners have got packed up, shipped to all different places all across the world, going to get set up over the next 6 months. And
volcano energy from El Salvador.
Yeah, so they've helped us out a lot. They've decentralized it. So yeah, thank you, China.
What I wanted to know was the blocks coming out every 10 minutes, 6.25 currently.
Yeah.
You've got global miners currently mining Bitcoin. And obviously it's a race, isn't it, to solve the computational equation. How is that then distributed to people? So let's say, I'll just use Greece, for example. There's miners in Greece, and then they get to the equation first. Is all 6.25 blocks sent to Greece?
Yep.
And okay, so then the energy that Spain, Latvia, USA, and no longer China, let's say Japan, spent in trying to solve that computational equation in those 10 minutes, they get nothing at all.
Correct, yeah. So yeah, and because the way it works is like you can't be better than anyone else because it is just a long random number.
Yeah.
So provided it's all about what percent of the hash power do you have, that will be the percent of the blocks statistically that you will get. So the higher the percentage, the better. And yeah, so a lot of your energy, this is why a lot of people say it's a lot of wasted energy, because there's literally millions of nodes and miners all looking at one block. Ultimately, one of them gets it, and they get all the reward 99.9% of that computational power was wasted because then the next block comes along. But ultimately, what they're doing is securing the network to make sure no one tries to get a dodgy block in there, change transactions, and they make sure they stay honest and verify the person that did get it. They agree, they certify that miner did get it. That is the correct answer. They mine that onto the blockchain and then go for the next one. So it's why it's quite a complex thing. And when you look at it from a distance, it looks like a huge amount of wasted energy. But when you look at, if you zoom out and go, what do you get? You get sound money, and you get money that can't be altered. Suddenly it starts to make sense. But when you look at it very zoomed in on just as miners, it does look like a bit of a nonsense.
Is there a country that's better at solving the equation than others, and therefore they are ahead, or would we just never know?
It was China, because essentially the only way you can be better, it is literally just a random number. So there's no intelligence. So all it's about is speed, and they're called ASICs.
The ASICs computers,
which are just like automated computer. It's a very focused thing where, like, this laptop, for example, is designed to do a million different things, like Zoom calls, like Microsoft programs, like internet, all those things. ASICs essentially designed purely to generate that random number as efficiently and as fast as possible. So all you can do is design technology and chips to just pump out that random number as fast as possible. And that's where China did lead the way. They created the best ASICs, so everyone is buying theirs. So yeah, that's why they dominated Bitcoin mining in the early days, because they had the most efficient miners. So they were winning the majority of the blocks. Plus, so then suddenly when you're mining the blocks and winning, you can reinvest that money and stay ahead. And then they obviously also had the cheapest energy as well. So they had a perfect storm there to stay ahead. And cheap labor to build miners themselves.
Yeah.
But China have just blown their lead. It's a nice little reset, really, for the world to go, China had a 12-year head start there, and their own government just shot themselves in the foot, and now it's decentralized all around the world. It's like, okay, well, thanks for that. It's kind of what Bitcoin needed.
Well, yeah, exactly. Still with us, Ross?
Yep.
He's browsing LinkedIn, reading his articles.
He's liking everybody that's hated on you.
He just lurks. I'm just like, I can hear Ross chuckling away as I'm typing.
Just like, terrible comment. You're a ghastly individual, Gareth.
If you notice, I like quite a lot of them, just to really wind them up, because I think it just confuses them. Someone called me like a gobshite fuckwit or something. I just like just like, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do?
Gareth McAfee.
But talking about gobshites, we got a story here on freaking Craig Wright, haven't we?
Oh gosh,
I'm
gonna need to get a drink. I'll be back in a minute.
Do you know what my comment is?
Go on.
I couldn't even be bothered reading into this. I just went, we know what he is. He just won't fuck off.
No, the problem is that he won the court case because this developer called Cobra, and this white paper, because obviously the story is that he is suing people for copyright for hosting the Bitcoin white paper. So on bitcoin.org, like the main Bitcoin website, that has the Bitcoin white paper on it. It is maintained by a group of Bitcoin developers. Craig Wright is suing them because he claims he wrote the white paper, and he's claiming copyright on it. So if you don't ask his permission, you have to take it down. So he's suing the main Bitcoin website, the one that has loads of great content on, is one of the places that I learned a lot of my knowledge about Bitcoin. It's a great site. And because Cobra, no one knows his real name, he refused to, because the only way to defend yourself in a court of law is you have to give your real identity out. So the person speaking the defense is a named person. He refused and said, I will only defend myself in the name of Cobra, my online identity. I don't want to reveal who I am just because this guy has randomly sued me. And the court just goes, you can't do that. If you do that, the other person's going to win on default, and you have to pay his legal fees. And that's what's happened. And as well, you have to put a notice on the website and you have to take down the white paper. And that's what's happened. He's won the case. He's claiming 35 grand worth of legal fees. The website has to put on a notice to say, we have broken this copyright and we hosted something written by Craig Wright. And they have to take down the white paper. And that's what they've got to do. And he's suing a load of different Bitcoin websites that host the white paper as well. And because he's going through the courts, he's got so much money, he's actually winning because people don't want to defend themselves. And it's just, he's a fucking nuisance.
Well, maybe John McAfee could have just killed him when he was killing his next door neighbor. Maybe that was a big mistake.
I know. It's so bad when people do stuff like this.
It just seems like he's after all sorts because he knows that people don't want to reveal themselves. Like he's done a few things in the past. Yeah. He seems to have found something where he can actually hurt people on this.
Yeah, it was Hodlnaut, and because the statement is, if you say Craig Wright is a fraud, and if you're UK based, and I'm just saying that is allegedly he is a fraud. I'm not saying it because he could sue me for libel in the UK, and that's what Hodlnaut did. And he's not actually UK based, but I think he's EU based. And at the time, Brexit hadn't happened, so we're always the same kind of libel laws. That he had his followers looking through past Bitcoin events, finding Hodlnaut, finding his likeness. He had some tattoos or something, and then he managed to find his identity through that and sent the court papers to his Twitter account, but his real address. He managed to basically dox him through his online presence. And then, and that court case is still ongoing. And I think the cost at the moment was high as £500,000. So if Hodlnaut doesn't win, and the Bitcoiners have helped, and loads of people have helped fund his legal fees, that even if he does lose, his costs will be paid. But it's just a disgrace that Craig Wright he's backed by this billionaire guy, and he's just got a team of lawyers going after Bitcoiners.
Why is the billionaire backing him?
Weirdly, it's this Calvin Ayre guy, and he thinks he is Satoshi. He's convinced him he's Satoshi.
But they've done coding reviews on stuff which Craig Wright has contributed to against the core code for Bitcoin. They said that whilst I think we said that he's a reasonable programmer, he's not that standard, is he? If I remember correctly.
He's not even a reasonable programmer. He did a Hello World freaking app or something, or a clock it was. He put a clock on to prove he's a developer, and then someone found it was copy and pasted from a coding learning website in about 5 minutes. So he's clearly not Satoshi, but he's convinced one billionaire that he is, and now he's bankrolling him and to run BSV and to sue a load of Bitcoiners. And weirdly, when this court case got kind of closed, it got pitched in BSV land as this proves Craig Wright is Satoshi. He is the author of the white paper. It's been proven in a court of law, even though that was not proven at all. It just got the only reason he won, and the judge even said it. He said, "You are not Satoshi. This court case does not say that, but because the person hasn't defended, I award you the judgment. You have to pay his costs because you haven't put a case forward." So that's it. There's no kind of I'm not siding on either side. It's just one person didn't turn up, so they lose. That's how courts work. But he's just being an absolute nuisance, and he's going after people that are active developers on the Bitcoin protocol, and they're having to be distracted and be stressed out by these legal papers, and just to try and prove that he's a freaking narcissist psychopath that just won't go away.
It just seems very strange, his behavior. Very, very strange.
He won't leave the space, even though everybody's not his friend. He's just there, isn't he? Just lingering about, okay, no one wants to play with you. You were welcomed.
He keeps on trying to pop the football, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's just ostracized himself massively. And even if it was just going to carry on with the Bitcoin Cash thing, hey, okay, then fair enough. But going so far as to claim you're Satoshi and then continue to run with it and you've been found out, just give it up.
Yeah. Well, he got kicked out of Bitcoin Cash, didn't he?
Yeah, sorry, he had. Yeah, as well.
So he had to create BSV, which is why he's been largely irrelevant since all that happened like 2 or 3 years ago. He's barely been mentioned because he's just in his own little world. And but then he's come back. He wants to be relevant. He wants to try and drag his way back into BTC, which he knows is the real Bitcoin, because his claims of just being like BSV is the real Bitcoin have clearly not worked. The price has just gone crazy down compared to BTC terms. So now he's using his wealth to come after the BTC devs to try and slow him down and try and get his claws back in. And it's just awful.
Does he have any wealth still, like from early Bitcoin, I guess?
Yeah, he clearly does. Yeah, I think he has nowhere near as much as he claims he does. Because even Cobra, he joked that he would happily pay in Bitcoin the 35 grand to Satoshi's address. And Craig, you can clearly access it. So just get it from there. So everyone's like, oh, that would be a beautiful troll. Like if you pay the legal fees through Satoshi's address and just go, yeah, great, send him. And essentially Satoshi, the real Satoshi, gets the coins, but the fake Satoshi who's claiming to be him, it's like, well, yeah, you can't have it. But
because that's the infamous question, isn't it? Move the original million coins.
Yeah, just move one Satoshi.
Or just move one.
Yeah, and but yeah, so yeah, I think he's not nowhere near. He claims to be a billionaire. I don't think he is, but I think he's got tens of millions himself. Then he is friends with a guy called Calvin Ayre, and he is a billionaire.
Right.
I think he set up. I think it's Bodog, that gambling website.
Oh yeah. They are big.
Probably heard of it. Yeah. So he that. So that's just a printing machine. That's just spits out huge amounts of wealth. And and somehow Craig has convinced that guy he's Satoshi, so now he's bankrolling him. And because the thing is, like, if a guy like that likes you, all you have to do is throw you 100 million. It doesn't even matter to him, and that's set him up for life now, isn't it? To just fucking go after everyone legally and try and prove to the world he's Satoshi, and he won't give up until he's dead. It's just,
I guess as well, between them, they can probably come up with some new shit coin that they'll show to gamblers as well, that they'll then take on. So yeah, and he probably knows enough that he can, flip something in that world in terms of, because I always see not necessarily Bitcoin but altcoins of some form working with gambling, and the two being synonymous with one another as well.
So just having a quick read through his information, it's funny. Wright says he has a doctorate in theology, comparative religious and classical studies award in 2003, although he has not stated which institution granted his doctorate. Wright claimed to have a PhD in computer science from Charles Sturt University on his LinkedIn profile as of 2015, but the university told Forbes that it was only awarded him 2 master's degrees and not a doctorate. So it's funny, like obviously a Bitcoiner has written that and found some bits and pieces here and there, but it just, I suppose it kind of does go against his credibility.
Oh, hugely, yeah. Weirdly, I watched, because it always came up, a live stream of his popped up and I just jumped on it for 2 seconds. And someone was asking him, there's a recent world record for the number of degrees. And I forget the number, but it was a huge amount. And they went, how many degrees have you got, Craig? And he said, like, double that. And they just went, why don't you submit then? And he went, it's not worth my time. I don't need the accolade. It's like, it's so much bullshit. You clearly do not have these degrees. You can't back it up. I can easily say I have double the degrees of the world record. I can't back it up, but it's easy to say. And
that really is, it does seem like he's got a bit of a big ego there.
Oh, he is. If you look up the definition of narcissist and then relay it onto everything he says, it's like, it is just that. He is a narcissist. He loves himself and just wants everyone to love him too. But he goes about it completely the wrong way. He's like the most hateable guy ever. Like, even when he's on there on these live streams with people that like him, he's a dick to them. And you can just tell they are getting angry with him, and like they're paid to be there and they don't want to be there after like 10 minutes because he's just so disagreeable. Like you're literally repeat something he said back to him and he'll just disagree with it. And like, no, you said this. You're like, yeah, but in this way, you totally mischaracterized it. You're like, why are you arguing with me? I'm like, I'm on your side, like giving you kind of like little underhand bowls here for you to smack out the park because I'm on the payroll, and you're still arguing, being a dick with me. It's like, I'm not trying to bring you down. Like, it's just you could have an argument in a phone box.
So moving on to something a bit more positive. The next one made me laugh. The OG Bitcoiner. So I had to read about some of his quotes. He just sounds hilarious. He's not one which I've come across. Obviously, big to me being relatively new, but I had to read up on him. So how do you pronounce his first name?
I think it's Monsieur Popescu.
Yeah.
So he is a self-professed world's greatest erotica writer. I'm trying to find.
He doesn't like women very much. I don't think he likes Jews. He's got some very, very out there views. Very, very out there.
I didn't read those, but I read some funny quotes, and it just seems to be that he says some bad words and people are using it against him. So you've got what's his quote? The self-styled developers are by and large a bunch of retarded children looking for sexy projects, and who knows, maybe if they geek out more, they might become spur rock stars, and some fatty somewhere is throwing a bra at them.
Yeah.
But then he did say some good stuff. I think Bitcoin is not here for you to opinion about. Bitcoin is here to profoundly and oftentimes painfully change your life, whether you agree or not, whether you give permission or not, whether you think it's acceptable or called for or whatever else. Nobody asked you. And I thought that was quite apt. And it's actually a serious quote. Like some of the quotes are hilarious, but that one I thought really hit the spot.
Yeah, I think he reminds me of a John McAfee type character because undoubtedly he's an OG Bitcoiner. He's apparently rumored to have around 1 million Bitcoin because he was right in there at the very, very early stages. So like Satoshi type wealth, but obviously he's been around. So the amount of Bitcoin he has now is significantly less, but still rumored to be between 50 and 100,000 per Bitcoin. And yeah, had a lot of very controversial views. But this is why, like, Bitcoin doesn't care what your views are. Like, it just cares about what your views on, what your attitude towards money is, and being self-sovereign. Then once you are self-sovereign and you do what you want, you can do things that and have very offensive views if you want. But then we reserve the right to not respect you for that. But thank you for your contribution to Bitcoin, but you still stink as a human being. The two things can be true, right? And it looks like this guy wasn't a particularly nice guy. I think he was being funny sometimes, but I think just he did seem to have some pretty offensive views. I think his blog has been taken down now, but I was reading through a couple of them, and they were in pretty bad taste. And I think he was clearly trying to be a troll, but sometimes you can tell when someone goes past troll, and you realize they're believing some of this stuff now. And like, yeah, this is just being nasty for the sake of being nasty against certain people. You're like, there's not really any need for it, but one of the takeaways from it is he probably had a large amount of Bitcoin left, and he randomly drowned in the sea. So people aren't really sure whether he died or not. Apparently he's in some type of relationship with 3 women. It was some type of master-slave thing. I don't really get it. He was the master. There was 3 slaves. He drowns in the sea, but he's in some foreign country somewhere. I'm not really sure where it is, where the police aren't too reliable. Sources and like no one's seen it, no one's evidenced it, so they are kind of going, is this just a fake your death thing so he can just disappear and not pay taxes, or he's trying to avoid someone because he's probably...
Well, we've not seen John McAfee's body yet, have we?
Nope. And it wouldn't surprise me if you never do, because they made a mistake with Epstein, didn't they? Once they saw the body and like people started analyzing the injuries, and then you start piecing it backwards, and you go, this is not consistent.
Yeah.
And you suddenly go, well, if that was that, these injuries are not consistent, no matter what the autopsy says. So, yeah,
how did he commit the suicide as well? Because surely you would expect him to be on
McAfee.
Yeah.
He hung himself. So that's how you kill yourself in prison, is hanging.
Yeah, but surely you would have been on 24/7 guard watch to avoid something like that prior to extradition. So you would need time to obviously put your sheets together and do whatever. Right. Why are you doing that? I can see you. like, put the sheet down.
Yeah.
So,
and like, what are you tying it to as well? Like, they keep
exactly
saying, like, they're tying it to the bed. It's like, what? But he's taller than the bed. Like, what?
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah,
and like, then they end up showing like, oh no, but as he did it, he snapped his neck. It's like, okay, show me a sheet that snaps your neck. I'll show you someone grabbing someone around the neck and twisting their head. That snaps the neck. And they were like, yeah, it's just, yeah, someone snapped his neck, then put it in the noose. Like, if all the films I've seen where people kill themselves, they don't hang themselves. They get a shank and they slit their throat and they bleed out. And it's very messy. That's how you do it. You do a really messy, like, you don't hang yourself. It's a really painful way to die. And the problem is your survivor instinct kicks in, even if you want to do it. So as you're hanging, you'll just get yourself out of it and you'll just slump on the floor again. Like, it's just, you can't do it. It just doesn't make any sense. And obviously the cells are set up where there's not there's not a hook on the top of the ceiling that you just hook your sheet on. It's like a flat ceiling. There's nothing there.
Exactly. And this is what I mean. Like, it sounds ludicrous. And if you just think about it as we have for the 1 minute, you think, well, you couldn't have done it, could you? Because it's not possible.
Show me a guy all bled out and he's managed to get one of those toothbrushes, sharpen the end, and then he's just slashed himself to pieces. Now I'd start believing it. It could still easily be faked. Someone could easily have done that to him. But once you show me someone just hanging up quite peacefully, you're like, nah. And obviously with Epstein as well, like, you see the guy they put in with him, like the massive fucking beefcake, like fucking skinhead guy. It's like, that guy could snap anyone's neck in 2 seconds of being in a cell with him. And that's the cellmate you gave him? Yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to this Bitcoiner guy, like, apparently, like, what this could mean is that there's a shit ton of Bitcoin that is now not accessible. There's another massive amount of the supply, because he was only 41 when he died. So there's a strong chance that he hasn't done his inheritance type stuff. So that Bitcoin's now, could be 100,000 Bitcoin lost on a ledger somewhere. It's never going to move. Which is good for the supply, bad for him.
Yeah, so you got the rumored Satoshi Bitcoin, haven't you? Because that's millions of coins, which hasn't moved. What is it, like 8.6 million?
No, 1 million.
1 million coins.
Nowhere near 8 million.
That might be at one point the value of what it was.
Maybe that's where I've lost it years ago.
Yes, it's rumored to be between 800,000 and 1 million. There's roughly that supposedly the very, very early miners have access to.
Oof.
About 5% of the supply is Satoshi, which is far too high. 5% is far too high. But yeah, it's nowhere nearly 8 million, because that would be nearly 50%. That's just insane.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, we also had some ARK. So ARK have filed for an ETF, which is pretty massive news, because they're like the number one investment firm in the world right now. The massive amount of hype they've got. They've been very pro Tesla over the years and pro just all the fintech stuff, and then obviously also Bitcoin over the last 5-6 years. They've led the way on a lot of it, made crazy gains, and now they're pretty much the investment firm in the world. And everyone looks to their advice and their market analysis to make investments. And and they filed for an ETF, which is very, very interesting, because they have the name. They have Cathie Wood as the individual, the figurehead, who's very, very respected in the finance space.
Very respected.
So yeah, it could be. They've got some good connections in there with the SEC. They're totally legit. And so yeah, who knows? There's probably about 10 ETF applications already in. But ARK doing it, they're very public. So who knows? That might be the one that gets approved. Who knows?
It's interesting, actually, because obviously following from on last week, I watched an interview, back to my favourite, Valuetainment, and Art Laffer was the guy. And Art Laffer was a lecturer at the university which Cathie Wood attended from ARK. And he was like the kind of like the associate to the president on taxes, essentially. So like he had a real high major job in society, and he knows tax inside out. And so whilst he doesn't necessarily, he says, invest in Bitcoin directly. He is an investor in ARK. And so obviously they invest in Bitcoin. And so inadvertently he's in. But this guy's super, super smart and he knows stuff inside out. And so I wouldn't be surprised that ARK actually get the first ETF, because that's the type of people that, they're with.
Yeah, nice. It's one of those where I'm very torn about the ETF stuff, because once it goes on ETF, essentially all it does is it allows you to buy Bitcoin and be exposed to the price appreciation.
Yeah.
But it will be undoubtedly great for the price of Bitcoin. The price will just go rocketing up because suddenly everyone can put it in their pension fund, everyone can buy it through their standard stockbroker account. Because so much of it is people don't want to sign up for an exchange and put money in there. They just feel that's dangerous, it's dodgy, they might get it stolen. Even if it's just 1% of risk in their head, it's enough to put them off. So they'll trust their main bank and just go, oh, I can search Bitcoin on here now and I can buy some Bitcoin. But you're not going to be self-sovereign. You're not got your own keys. You're still a miles away from that. So it's one of those where it'll be very positive price-wise, but I think a lot of the people that end up buying it, they're going to get it seized. But hopefully they don't. Hopefully it's just part of their journey. They get exposed to the price appreciation. They come in and eventually they read the Bitcoin standard, and then they sell their ETF shares, buy real sats, send it to their ledger, and they've learned the proper way to buy Bitcoin now, as opposed to the wrong way to buy Bitcoin, which is to buy paper Bitcoin on an exchange where someone else holds your coins. And at any point, a government order can be sent to that organization to go freeze it, and you've now lost your Bitcoin. And that isn't the point of Bitcoin. You should be owning it locally, and the only person that can freeze it is yourself.
Yeah, I think.
Should you end up with people? Oh, sorry, Darnell.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I think because we know that it's so difficult just to kind of get into Bitcoin, and ETFs make it very, very easy with it being paper, I think people will go for it, unfortunately.
But it is
least resistance.
It basically is speculation though. So these will be the paper hands, such. But kind of going on to which Gaz said then about seizing, you got plenty of examples. I think America have done it on countless individuals, and they hide behind weak regulations, which were brought through as emergency regulations, usually like the fight on terror or the fight on drugs. They can literally apply that to anything. Go fight on terror, but I've done nothing like that. Prove it. So your assets are frozen. You've got it in Turkey recently. I don't know if either of you heard of basically one of the most legendary Turkish strikers ever, Hakan Suker. So he was friends with the Turkish president, and they fell out, and basically just seized all his assets. And Hakan Suker apparently is now working as a taxi driver somewhere in America with no money.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, and that's a kind of, that is obviously an extreme example, but the government can just take your assets.
Wow, yeah. He was big. You know what? I've just remembered, and I'm not afraid to go back to it, on the whole conspiracy theory piece and John McAfee, because he was and is such a huge figure. Did you hear about the building collapse in Miami? Well, apparently he always said that he has data on individuals and upon anything ever happened to him, he would release that data.
Yeah.
Well, the building is the building that he said that he owned.
Fucking hell, really? That is a crazy link.
So it's not, and it just reminded me, because as I was doing the research ahead of today's show, and I was just like, hold on, and this isn't being talked about very much at all, but that building where I think 9 people died in the building collapse.
Oh, it's like 160 in the end.
Well, okay, yeah, okay. So
I think they said 9 at the start, and they went like 9, but 150 missing, and then missing just means they're in the rubble really like horribly, and they have to confirm they're dead before. But yeah, it's like everyone that was missing, they were in the rubble, so they've now it's like 150 plus dead.
well, that apparently is that building where he actually says in a tweet or something, this is where the information is located, and obviously if anything ever happens to me. And then lo and behold, the one building that collapses in Miami is that building.
Oh my god, do you have that tweet that he references this building?
What it was from was I'll find it and I'll find the name of the building. But yeah, I'll get it.
That is
I'll
insane.
message to you.
It's so random, isn't it? Like the building, it just collapses. It's like 1 minute it's there, and then it just falls. And there's 2 buildings standing right next to it. It falls directly straight down. It's almost like a demolition. It doesn't fall sideways, just straight down. There is like a bit of an earthquake thing going on at the time, isn't there? But nothing else happens in Miami then. All the buildings are supposed to be earthquake safe. They're used to it, aren't they? And and I've never seen anything like this happen before. I remember watching it, and it almost, when I was watching it, like almost live on Twitter, where there's a security camera across the street and just watch this building fall down. The flashbacks that I was getting were like 9/11 type flashbacks, where it's like, this is so insane. This is quite a large building, and it's just collapsed. And it's 2 a.m. and that is full of families in there. It's just so horrendous what's just happened. Yeah. And Jesus, if there's John McAfee have links to that building.
Yeah,
Christ,
because I believe that they think that data that he was going to release upon his death is in that building. And so, lo and behold, well, what are you going to do now, John? The building's no longer, up and standing.
Yeah, because I think there was a big Q post on his Instagram, wasn't there, for QAnon?
I think if he did have the information stored there, there'd be backups, there'd be automated procedures and all sorts. So I just feel it's probably a little bit of a strange rumor.
Yeah, you'd think it would be automatically just online somewhere, just get released. But then again, like if it's online, it can get found. It could have been some form of like USB drive. You never know.
Yeah. Now, of course, they're saying that there was no evidence that John McAfee owned the unit that collapsed. But of course, they're going to say that. So, I'll just put that in the group.
Oh, no, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
But talking about governments like seizing stuff and stealing, I don't know if you clicked on the link that you've seen what's happening in Lebanon at the moment, where they're raiding the banks, they're just tearing stuff down because inflation is basically around 100% a year now. So every savings, your savings are essentially halving every year. The supply is doubling every single year for the last 3 years. So they're just raiding banks. There's just crazy videos all over the place. They're just, the people have lost their minds because now it's just, there's no point working. There's no point playing by the rules because it's just, money is worthless, right? And once money becomes worthless in your society, all you can do is just go, well, what do other people have that I need to survive? And it's just like food and
it's looting. So what caused the initial inflation, say, go back to first year? I don't suppose you know this because it's not something which I looked into, but just as you said it, I thought it'd actually be quite an interesting point of how I suppose you got on this almost landslide.
Yeah.
We know where it is now, and it's basically hyperinflation, and it's basically, how do you actually stop the unrest? Because Lebanon had the issues, was it early 2010s, where a lot of the Middle East had riots. So it was like Egypt, and then through to a couple of countries as well. I don't even remember, and Lebanon was one of the main countries. I think it was I think they had royals who they kicked out of the country, if I remember correctly. So it's not exactly like it's alien. But I suppose my initial comment on this was
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it is like? Because all fiat money is pretty much based on confidence and how
That's
strong.
pretty good for you, Ross.
It's because the thing is that it's depending on how strong your government is with other governments. So Lebanon is weak on the world stage. So once other governments start refusing your money for goods or start asking for more and more and more, then the only way you can get yourself out of the situation is by printing more of it to get the same amount of goods in. And over time, you get away with it early doors. You get away with it, and you lie to the people about inflation, and you pretend the supply hasn't got way bigger. But eventually, the music stops, and the people suddenly realize, oh, our money's worthless, and they start rejecting it as well. Countries start rejecting it, and then suddenly now you have to double the supply every year just to stay afloat. And yeah, and eventually it all collapses, and you pretty much have to just have a hard reset and start the currency all over again, or do ideally what the US wants or the Europe wants, go to the euro or go to the US dollar and go, look, we'll bail you out, just come to our standard and make us more powerful. And that's what's happening. This is like the playbook where people in the UK, in Europe, and in America don't think hyperinflation can happen to them. But I can guarantee if you go to Lebanon and ask them 20 years ago, what do you think hyperinflation can happen to you? And they'd have said no chance. And well, look, they're right in the middle of it right now.
After the First World War, Germany were a European country who went into hyperinflation, and the stories about people wheeling it around in wheelbarrows because it was so useless.
They were using it as to light fires.
Yeah,
like, literally to heat your house with their money. It was better to do that than it was to spend it. It was worthless money.
Yeah. So it just says it's an opportunity to me. Is it a potential that El Salvador could push them into going into Bitcoin? But I suppose the problem is El Salvador is joint. It's on the US dollar and it's on Bitcoin, whereas with Lebanon it would literally just be Bitcoin. The only thing is Bitcoin. It needs to make sure people have wallets on their phones or mobile phone coverage. I don't know, what the situation is over there. So it seems like a bit of a too big a jump.
I think the main thing that matters is who's at the top. Like, do you have politicians that genuinely want to solve the problem, or are they addicted to the money printer and just think the people misbehaving and looting now just need to have authoritarian controls and bang them back into line? Yeah. In Lebanon, that's what you have. You have the people at the top are blaming the people at the bottom, and they'll be using the same type of divisive tactics to turn the people against each other to buy them more time. The difference in El Salvador is they were in a mess, but the guy that took over was actually quite legit and actually wanted to solve the problem, not through personal gain. Because personal gain could have just been continue with the money printer and do some nice deals with the US government. They'll throw you a couple of billion to carry it on, and you would be a very wealthy guy. He's gone, fuck the US. I don't want my bribes. I'm going to actually try and fix it. And that's the biggest hurdle for change, is having someone at the top that is not corrupt yet.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one to follow the development, because it, like you said, it's going to be a hard reset. So how exactly we're going to get out of it. So for me, it'll be one which I'll be watching in very much detail to find out how they get out of it.
I'm reading an article from 2017, and it says here, the Lebanese blame corrupt officials for the dire state of the country's finances and public infrastructure are unsympathetic. Their living standards have been squeezed badly since the civil war erupted in neighbouring Syria 6 years ago. So it has all the hallmarks of everything we've spoken about. Civil war, obviously in a neighbouring country that's just right there, but corrupt government officials taking money for themselves.
Yeah, and actually, there's the trigger point. That was the catalyst. It was the Civil War. You reminded me now. But yeah, because that's obviously, once you go to war with a neighbouring country, the money printer really has to go burr then, because you just need a shit ton of money to fund the war.
Exactly.
And again, you get addicted to it once all the big generals get used to their big armies and stuff and lots of bombs. You continue doing it well after the fact. You're like, well, we printed X billion last year for the war. How about we just pretend to do it again for the war, but we just take a load of it for ourselves? And and that it just escalates the downfall of the currency once you go into these war type situations, because the spending just really gets out of control once you start wars. But yeah, do I finish on a lighter note?
Go
on. About some was it
KP?
The fallen soldier that we have on the pod in Mark was tweeting about nice and jovial. There's a famous cricketer in the UK called Kevin Peterson, who weirdly isn't from the UK but plays for the UK, but he's South African.
Yeah.
But seems to be quite positive about Bitcoin. Mark did issue a gushing tweet, was really welcoming him aboard. And I liked it, went on my way, and then I'd take a look on it a couple of hours later. I think someone screenshotted it and sent it in. A couple of our mates that aren't Bitcoiners, or some of them are shitcoiners, just going, do you want to suck his dick or something? Very salty. Just, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see the adoption, especially creeping into the cricket world. I think they're all cricketers. I'm not personally, but they just don't want to see it. There's just, the saltiness was just the GIF. It was intensifying.
Do you know what I thought about this, right? Especially with the Euros on in World and England on beating Germany yesterday 2-0. Is these guys have obviously got money. They're sat around. Do you it wouldn't surprise me, and it's not beyond the wit of man, that at least one of them have got it. As in, like, hold on, I'm getting paid this money. I've got money. I should invest a little bit into Bitcoin.
Quite a lot of them do property. There's a bit of a history
they do
of assets.
property.
It's been things like horses, but horses like art is quite hard to judge. I think it's literally it is betting. But you're right. There's a Dutch footballer. I think it's what's his name, Dumfries or something like that. So apparently he's a Bitcoiner, and he's been trying to talk his teammates into it.
Yeah.
So there are, but it's not like the American sports, where the American sports there's a high number within the American footballers and basketball players, whereas for general soccer or football, I don't know of too many.
But cricketers don't really get paid that much. So do you know what? When he was saying it, I was just like, yeah, but Kevin Peterson is really going to make a big splash in the ocean by him actually. And he's like one of the better well-known cricketers. So anybody that follows him is only going to be worse.
I imagine he's probably earned a fair wedge over his career. He's probably a multi-millionaire, but he's not footballer rich. American sports rich.
I think, you know what? Let's do it right now.
Yeah,
let's have a look.
Because I think in reality, it was just the way Mark pitched it was, it's his hero, isn't it? I like how well known he is or how much money he's got. It's just his hero's now becoming a Bitcoiner, and so it was a big deal to him. And then the reaction from a couple of his closest mates is, "You're a dick." Cringe. And it's like, and in reality, it's just there's no support. Is that if this is the whole thing, you either love Bitcoin or you hate it. And I think the two people that were commenting as well, they both, I'm pretty sure they've been Bitcoiners or been exposed to Bitcoin at some point, but then probably aren't now, got shaken out either in this drop or the last bear market. And now they just can't even face seeing it in their timeline without saying a shitty comment. Because it's just someone being positive. It's like, oh, look, this guy wants to be a Bitcoiner now. There's nothing, not shilling any. It's not it's just celebratory. Well done. Great. But there's none of that. It's just negativity. How fucking dare you? This is, and trying to shame you into not talking about it again. And it's just, it's shitty when your own support group are doing that to you. And it's
a good point.
It's at 7.5 million, by the way, in terms of dollars.
You got to think that he is probably one of the best British cricketers for the last, I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
So he is the equivalent of, I don't know, Wayne Rooney or something, but just in cricket, so not a lot of money because it's boring.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah. The lowest paid American footballer gets that every year. It's that's chicken feed compared to America.
Yeah, but when you say net worth, that doesn't necessarily mean liquid cash that he has.
It also
available.
means potential earnings as well, doesn't it?
Before tax.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's always a bit of a funny one. So yeah, he's probably got 3 million in assets.
Yeah, and he's probably got £1 million house. He's probably got a 200 grand car. And then so when you actually look at it like disposable assets, he might have £1 million. And he's like 35, isn't he? He's only just retired. £1 million like his whole life. He's actually
but he'll do commentating, he'll get endorsements. So I kind of look at him and think, you know, he'll get
pretty
through
much
fine.
skint, isn't he? His skint is on the breadline.
It's millionaires go, he is. If he was living like the average, like 2 up, 2 down, like little lifestyle, yeah, he's minted. He doesn't have to worry about money. The problem is he'll be living like he's a top cricketer probably his entire life now. He's got used to that standard of living, those clothes, those holidays, those cars.
It's kind of like the footballers from the 90s, early 90s, who are, you know, the top ones earn, I don't know, 10 grand a week and never drop the lifestyle. So they burnt through money soon after retirement, and they're all broke, they're all bankrupt. Pretty much every single one of those people from that time. Whereas the ones now, they've got so much money, and also their agents tend to hook them up with financial advisors to make sure they do invest it. So it's part of their interests. But I think I've got 2 thoughts on this. It's one, kind of like, you know, someone who you admire, obviously not for financial reasons, has got into Bitcoin. I was thinking, who would that be for me? And I actually don't know. It'd probably be something like a film star, because I think that'd be quite an interesting one. But then it's a second point. The second one which came to my mind was, I'm not particularly interested in celebs. I want countries and continents.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly, I've gone on a little bit the opposite thing this week, where I just thought we're getting too focused on companies and countries, like getting FOMO. I want as many individuals to get it as possible. So
yeah, I think celebrities as well, or famous people, there's also, they go, well, you know, this is how you spread the word to all the plebs like us. They go, Bitcoin, oh, that's a pile of shit. Maybe 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 10 goes, oh, I'll read something, read a blog, or then I'll go and read the Bitcoin standard, or I'll use Bitcoin lessons. You know, kind of fall down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. I don't know which celeb or sports star is actually intelligent enough to then back to say, actually, they will not only just get Bitcoin, but then they won't go on to shill a shitcoin later on. They will just stay true to their word. And that's why I've just been sat here struggling to actually
me and you, Dan, have already had it. Yours is Mayweather, mine's Elon. They've already come in and then fucked off into shitcoin land. So my dreams have already been dashed, and so have yours.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone who I really admire that much.
No.
So I'd just be like, okay, someone famous, so I think it's reasonable. Like I was saying to you, Don, I like Elon, but when he did all that things,
I like Elon. Yeah.
I think after he did all those things around Bitcoin, I've really struggled to finish off the Audible, so I just haven't been interested in listening to it anymore.
He's been my hero for the last like freaking 20 years. I've just absorbed every bit of content Elon's ever put out, like for literally 20 years. And when he came into Bitcoin this year, I couldn't have been more happy. It's like my 2 worlds were aligning. I'm like, oh my God. And then he fucked it up within about 3 weeks.
If only Christian Bale would come into Bitcoin.
Actually, you look like a bold Harry Kane. You could have Harry Kane.
Bold Harry Kane.
He's a hero now. He scored a goal from 2 yards.
Yeah, it's about time.
Against the Germans.
Ross, I did want to talk to you actually. How are you feeling after the epic ride on Friday?
Good. Yeah, good. I went out tonight after I finished work, but I jarred my knee in the last 5 miles, and it's not right at all. So I was going up some hill and it was playing up. I still did enough for 15 miles, but something's not right at all. But I think it's probably just a bit of a strain.
Have to go on record that Gaz, he got me through this. It was 100 miles that we did, 101 miles, and Ross was on one. He was on it. Yeah, like he was dragging me through. The weather
I want to quit.
Yeah. Like if I could have quit, I would have quit.
Just waiting for the nod. You're looking sideways, going, "Want to quit? Want to quit? We can quit. We can quit."
And you just get Miss Stone back. You just get Miss Stone back. You.
I did many a time. There was just one that it was at one point, wasn't it? It was just the coastline.
On the coast when it was blowing and raining, horrible. Both, stopped a little bit too long for lunch, and it just ruined us.
You started to seize up, don't you?
Yeah, we did exactly that. Yeah, we started to seize up. We were shivering. The wind and rain was literally lashing down in our faces. Open coastline, and I was just like, "Why the fuck are we doing this?" like you said, let's just stop now. No one will know. And even though we were in the middle of nowhere, so we still had to ride back just to get home. But yeah, I was thinking, this is bad. But yeah, glad we did it. Really glad.
I'm thinking about t-shirt selfie.
No, we didn't actually. No, we were just like not in it for the glory. We just did it for the miles, weren't we?
I just want to get home.
Yeah.
Wash myself and eat something.
Yeah.
Burn so many calories. I think Strava estimated 5,000 calories on top of your normal consumption.
Yeah.
So we ate constantly through the day, but still, I was starting to feel a bit towards the end, so I didn't have the calories which I needed.
I do want to shout out CJ's Tacos as well. So right, get this right. So we've set off early in the morning, and I think we'd got to just under 40 miles, and we planned to eat at this place, and we got there at 1:45, and it opened at 1. Ross, 5 minutes before, had fallen off his bike and his knee was bleeding.
Going around about 2 miles per hour, so it wasn't anything dramatic. It's just me trying to turn in the road, fell off because I couldn't get out my cleat. Looked like a right idiot.
Yeah, I was going to let you off, but yeah, you look like a right fool. So it gets to 1 o'clock, knocking on the door like Oliver Twist. "Please, sir, let us in." And he actually turns around and says, "Oh, sorry, lads, we're actually closed until 4 o'clock today." And my heart just sank, literally just broken right there. And I was just like, but he said, "No, don't worry." Like, I told him the story where we'd ridden from. He's like, come in, fired everything up for us. And we had like a closed restaurant to ourselves. So pause.
I hope you tipped him nicely.
We actually didn't know.
Oh
so
my god,
we should have.
Fucking hell.
We had no money. We had literally our phones on us, and that was
she
it.
just paid it. You tapped the card on it, yeah.
Tap the card, yeah. But that's why I wanted to give a shout out to CJ's
some sats instead.
Yeah. It was definitely worthwhile as well. The meal was good, really good.
Good food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've now been looking at what ones I can do in the future.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
There's the North Wales, South Wales. There's North Wales coast. There's West Coast, East Coast of England. So there's a few.
What is it you actually did? What was the 100 miles you did this time?
It was to Towyn from Chester, and then back to Chester, then Chester up the Wirral and back.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
So it was fairly flat.
How did you deal with it? Was it on roads or what?
There's a lot of cycle track going that way, so we did a lot of cycle track, but there was a little bit of road.
Yeah. It's amazing that cycle track, literally, first time that I had actually followed a cycle track, but cycle track number 5.
Yeah.
Just had us going, and it was brilliant. Really good.
So there's a few different ones which you can go for future routes, but it's about how do you either get somewhere with your bike in order to start it, or how do you get back? So it's like the decision, like, how do you coordinate that, like that part? That's what I'm struggling with, get my head around. Because trains aren't always consistent. They don't always let you and your bike on.
Yeah. So the one that we went through is actually a long distance route from Reading to North Wales, if we followed it from beginning to end.
Oh wow.
Yeah. A long way away.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like, I remember having meetings there. I think that's like 3 or 4 hours away, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's in the car.
And yeah, exactly. That's in the car.
Sounds all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have it, like, make that a 2-day thing, couldn't you? Cycle one way, stay over, come back.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a future challenge. Come up with something else a bit ludicrous and how to do it. It's just like I said, it's a coordination of either the end or the beginning's a problem. Otherwise, you got to do some kind of loop.
But we did some great sites, and I think definitely would do it again. I went out on Sunday, and I've been out this evening as well since Friday. Yeah,
I wasn't moving on Sunday.
I'm not surprised. Like I said, you were hammering it, mate. So really, really good effort.
Yeah, it was just good to get 100 miles.
Yeah, 100%.
Sweet.
Cool. Let's end it on that positive note there.
Let's leave it there.
Au revoir.
To anyone that's watching, that's not watching, peace out. Fellow plebs, if you want to hear us, then tune in.